The rise of robotics in agriculture as pandemic accelerates automation adoption, coming up live shortly. This session is sponsored by John Deere. Hi, welcome to Convex Hub channel. I'm Bonnie Redzam, your host for Expert Insight at Live, a broadcast series featuring forums and interviews with industry thought leaders on market, policy, strategy, technology, and innovation that steer the industry growth. To all our viewers, if you have any inquiries or questions, kindly share them on Slido, hashtag AgriExpertInsight at Live, or do Twitters at Agri 4.0. You can also post your questions through the Q&A message box right below the live broadcast channel. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a growing interest in robotic processes automation, especially within the manufacturing sector. Automation has been gradually replacing human workforce in a range of jobs, such as business enterprises look to improve operations, increase efficiency, and reduce operating costs. A shortage of skilled labor, especially in the agriculture sector, which has become more apparent during the current health crisis, is intensifying the adoption of automation. Farms and plantations are turning to robotics, AI, and IoT to solve operations disruption and to keep their supply intact in their market. I have with me today some of the most remarkable experts. First, we have Mr. Chanchai Tanat Katrakul, Principal of Roland Berger. Next, we have Dr. Saurabh Katiar, Deputy Director of Sharon Pokpat Group Co. Limited. And last, but not the very least, Mr. Deepak Parikh, Chief Executive Officer of DG Agri Technologies Private Limited, to share the insights and thoughts on the rise of robotics in agriculture. Good morning, gentlemen. Greetings from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Fantastic. Without further ado, of course, I will hand over our discussion today to our moderator, Professor Dr. Ahmad bin Ibrahim. He's the head of research, Convex Hub Group, and senior advisor of Fraunhofer, and he also serves as professor at UCSI University. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Bani, and welcome all our panelists. I'm sure we are into a very fruitful and lively discussion this morning. What we'll do is we'll first have each one of you to present about 5 minutes on any key areas or your message that you want to post that you need to pass on this topic of the robotics in agriculture. And after that, I will be asking some questions, and we'll also be entertaining some questions from the audience. So can we just start with our first speaker, our first panelist, Mr. Chanchai Tanakatrakul from Roland Berger. Please.
Thank you so much. So I just want to quickly introduce myself and also the key insights that I want to share here. My name is Chanchai Tanakatrakul. I'm a principal and also the country head here for Roland Berger, Thailand. I've been working with public sector on the digitalization, technology, and agriculture topic for quite some time. And today, if you can go to the next slide, please. I just want to quickly touch on the white paper that I have a chance to develop together with the ministries in Thailand So this is the white paper on how Thailand can use the digital technology to improve the well-being, the productivity of key sectors in Thailand. And today I bring in the topic of agriculture. So as this is the theme of our discussion today, so agriculture occupies about 1/3 of Thailand labor force. However, the efficiency and productivity that the overall country can generate is still quite low compared to our neighboring countries. Therefore, we were engaged by the Ministry of Thailand to develop some of the key insights on how to best leverage technology. So just to quickly jump onto the four recommendations that we developed for the ministry. The first one, this is about the developing national agriculture information system. So everyone knows that data is data. Unless they are open, unless they are shared, unless they are leveraged, that cannot be fully utilized. So on in the middle of this page, you see the connecting, you see the analyzing, you see the sharing, and also the using of data. These are the key four themes, the big words that we want to highlight here. And having the data, having the sharing information system will allow all players in the ecosystem to make the full harness of this information. And also the next slide, please. The second initiative that we recommend is how to use the precision agriculture in terms of the technology to improve three key things for the agriculture sector in Thailand. First and foremost, we would like to improve the overall productivity of the output from the agriculture sector. The second one is also how to improve the overall the situation and lower the usage of the inputs into the agriculture sector. And third, may not be the most important one, is to reduce the number of manpower that we leverage in this sector. And I would like to touch a little bit on this, why it might not be the most important one, because as I mentioned previously, that Thailand still occupies about 1/3 of our labor force in this sector. Therefore, we need to think carefully. If we are going to use technology, if we are going to use robotics to replace the human, then what would those people do in the future? And then if we go on to the next slide, please. The third recommendation that we suggested was about the precision livestock farming. This is from end to end, starting from how to use the technology, either the biotechnology or the image sensing, to really find in the right breed of the feedstock of the aquaculture, and then go on to the end, the full stream of computer management to monitor, to track, and also to make sure that everything is going to run smoothly throughout the 24-hour and 7 days of the week. And then the fourth one. Next slide, please. So the last one, but not least, this is about how we can use the digital ecosystem as a media, as a platform to connect everyone in the ecosystem together, starting from the farmer themselves, by cutting across the middleman to already connect directly to their customer, to their market, and also their technology provider. So in a nutshell, these are the four key recommendations that we suggested in terms of how we can leverage the digital technology to disrupt and transform the agriculture sector here in Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chanchai. That is very interesting. How Thailand is moving very fast into digitalization of agriculture. We know how important agriculture is to the world, food production, material production. And I think when you talk about digitalization, it's all about connectivity and data and how to best use this data. We are in a knowledge economy. So next we have Dr. Saurabh Kathiar, who is another big player in agriculture from the CP Group, based in Bangkok as well. Please, Dr. Saurabh.
Thank you so much for having me here. I I would like you to move to the next slide, the first slide, and I will give a brief on my presentation. So, okay. So, what first thing which I would like to emphasize on the role of agriculture currently in Asia. So, I quote here the World Bank indicators here, which is developing countries relying on the agriculture as a larger percentage of GDP as compared of the developed countries. So, if you see that overall agriculture as a share of total GDP in the economy is highest in countries in Southeast Asia, South Asia, and also if you see Africa. So these countries will always have agriculture as one of the top priority. So given its importance to the worldwide economy, if you see, agriculture is one of the most appealing market for disruption and also for the growth. So, for example, I would quote that recently Canadian government actually invested more than 46 billion million dollars in technology like robotics, harvesting, computer networks. Similarly, in Thailand as well, like we are moving quite ahead right now. Like in CP also, we are in quite ahead in the curve when it comes to adaptation of robotics technology for our own farms as well as the as a farmland from where we actually extract the produce. So also like many other use cases, if you see in like for example. Australia, like the produce is more than 43 billion, and which actually is effect of deploying not more than 3% of the overall workforce in the country. And New Zealand also, if you see, which is around 14.4%, 14.4 billion, which is actually they are deploying not more than 6.16% of people in the agriculture, which is I would say rather that lowest employed and highest yield. And that is the kind of vision which we actually strive when it comes to the agriculture. I would like to emphasize on Thailand as well. Like in Thailand, roughly around 2/5 of the land is covered by mountains, hills. So the demographics is totally different. And if I see the steepness of which the generally procures the cultivation, it classifies around 58% of mountains and hilly regions as cultivable, which is about 19 to 25% of a usable for, if I say about the rice, paddy, and around 28% of for upland crops, and also like 11% of around like I would say both paddy and upland agriculture. So which actually I would say that when it comes to digitalization, we really need to see what is the demographics and what exactly is the kind of produce which we actually get. In any case, like I would say, when it comes to the corporate sector in 4.0 era, which is driven actually by like digitalization, new people, talent, and corporation, which is giving actually importance to sustainability. So any organization which is seeking profit without clear sustainability goals, which is unlikely to fail. So that is something very important. So I would say another point, like when it comes to the Thailand, like unlike any other industries, though agriculture is a very foundation stone. But Thailand agriculture system currently, if I see like the small agricultural farmers, they are still stuck in past. So agriculture model currently lacks utilization of technology, management, funding, knowledge of like diseases or commodities, epidemiology. So actually, farmers are finding themselves under huge, in many cases, in huge debts also. Without the capacity to gain any kind of profit or lack of adaptive knowledge, management, and skill sets. So that is one thing which is very important to actually address when it comes to the agriculture transformation. I think we can move to the next slide in here, if you please. Yeah. So Yeah, so one of the things which I would say that we have also focused into in CP Group, like we understand that the future of agriculture is essential to the Thailand's economic growth. Like mega trends like biotech, nanotech, and space tech, robotics, digital are actually disruptive and transforming the agricultural world. And it is really high time that Thai agriculture system should change. And we have actually from our side, like CP has actually focused into 9 key points in itself. And that's what is the vision. Also, it's aligned to the Thailand Agriculture 4.0. Like where like first thing is satellite for agriculture, which is actually representing cutting edge technology around to change the complete Thai agriculture. Satellite engine for programs like Google Maps, they really are good for the farmers to locate suitable areas for farming. And second is like zoning and geo strategy, which is also very important. Another factor which actually is bringing about the change in agriculture, because zoning and the land management means like you identify the cultivation areas in different parts of the country. So by farming in agriculture to the market trend, this is a key thing to do. For example, like coconuts are popular products for Chinese market, which needs to be increased farmland accordingly. And this is something which we can actually focus on. Third is actually water, which is a heart for the agriculture. Now, however, there are numerous Thai agriculturists who are facing poverty due to lack of water. So water management and IoT really can help in providing solutions to the problem. So that's another area. And next is if you see like a high quality seeds in the soil. So the quality of seeds and proportion of soils is really essential. So in Thailand, we have actually experienced like different kind of soil, culture, standards. So if the farmer is failed to meet the certain criteria to prepare their seeds in the soil, they won't be able to harvest as much as they are anticipating, unlike a new mega farming methods that require mass cultivation area. So that's another thing. And next is actually service and smart farming and the contract farming. So this is another point, because see in Thailand, like an average farmer, if you see the land which they possess is quite low as compared to any developed country. So we really need to see how we can actually engage and indulge with those small farmers to bring the right kind of cultivation. So services and smart farming contract is one of the important thing, which is actually, I would say that it's a kind of new method for large area farming or mega farming. Like, for example, in European countries, if you see, they use a co-op kind of method with successfully determining by some kind of small entrepreneur spirit of the cooperative leadership. In United States also, you will see that there are contract farming and mega farming which is used. And since there is like advanced technology and management already, so it is actually take up very fast. So and similarly in Thailand, like since Thailand right now isn't a large country, shifting farmers towards an industrial farming system can really prove difficult immediately. So social enterprise is a new model which actually we need to adopt. That should be more suitable for the Thai farmers, and it allows farmers to become shareholders for the new business method, like smart farming or a service farming, and that will enable farmers to operate in their own business startups. And next is like on the traceability. If you see like agriculture traceability, also use of the blockchain. So this is also necessity of 4.0 era. So it's a key factor for helping buyers and sellers to track back the products as a problem arise when they aren't be traced back. So this is one of the important things which need to be addressed. So if we can come to the next slide, please. Yeah. So, now, what is the core? Like out here, I would like to, since one of the topic was on the use of AI and ML. So certainly, the core strategy certainly should be that the crop, location, segment agnostic platform with a high configurability and assimilability for the rapid global data acquisition in order to manage the overall revenue and the cost, as well as the risk as well for the complete ecosystem, which is very important. So so this how to do that, certainly one of the important thing is that whatever the AI like ML and data learning and all those things which we are going to utilize, it's important to do the right kind of in fact defining the KPI, what kind of problem statements we are actually addressing, what are the approaches actually we are going for type of model which we are going to deploy, and so all those things need to. So I have categorized some specific assessment criteria when we actually deploy AI and ML. So this is very important to actually to mention. Coming to the next slide quickly, because since time is less. So yeah. So the next is I mentioned few two slides I mentioned about majorly about a kind of framework which is currently it's driving. One of the important thing is digital when it comes to the agriculture digital enablement. One is digital ergonomy and production. So that's one thing, planning and farming management and market access and financing. So these are the three key things which are there. But if what I feel that the market has yet to commit to common services framework right now. This reinforcement of industry fragmentation and is very important for scalability. And right now, I've not yet seen a sizable wave. Certainly, the government participation is up to level as an enablement, but we really need a kind of a kind of service framework where entrepreneurs and service providers can come together to create a kind of common framework where small to medium to large farmers can grow. So so that's something which is very important. Next, actually, if you see, I've next slide, if you can go, was I've a bit touched upon on the livestock as well. So if I talk a bit on the livestock, for example, I say the cow, connected cow. So they are mainly further along with the other any other agricultural commodity. You will see that. Even then more connected, they are kind of connected human. So to make them actually incremental leap to do more data driven digital bound. So we really need to actually track each and every part of their actually complete process, either from how is prediction in terms of fertility, their breeding, their appetite, their tracking on their feed and all those things as well. So it's very important. So similarly for the pig, swine as well, where the disease symptom diagnostics predictability is also important.
Can you conclude, please? Can you conclude, Dr. Sarab?
Yes. So this is one thing which is I would like to, So the last, actually, if you can go ahead on the last slide. Yeah. So from here to where, actually, one thing which is very important that looking ahead, which I can see is a continuous optimism, which it may finally be data time to shine. So one thing which is very important that right now, with quality data, improving the cost, availability of computing power, artificial intelligence and machine learning, that will become more accessible, and that will help in shifting the tide. So what I would say is still the agriculture sector is still waiting for the big data platform leader to emerge right now, which requires significant capital investment and domain focus. And Thailand, as a I would say, when it comes focus on Thailand, certainly we need more ecosystem partners to come along to support public and private segment for the small and medium size of the farmers in the industry. Yeah, that's where it is.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shaurab. I think what is clear from his presentation is that the world population is growing. We need more food, and yet we are running short of arable land, suitable land for agriculture. So productivity has to be the driving force of future agriculture. And productivity means we need to deploy good technologies, digitalization, and lower input, higher output. This is what we are aiming at. And I think Dr. Schraub has given us some examples of how this can be achieved in the case of agriculture, in livestock, and also in other aspects of precision agriculture. Next, we'll have one Mr. Deepak Parekh, and he comes direct
Thank you.
from Mumbai, very far, and he's from DG Agri. So he will speak for about 5 minutes on this topic of robotics in agriculture. Please, Mr. Deepak.
Yeah, sure. So first, let me a little bit give an introduction in the background. So I'm Deepak Parekh. I've been working across from Philippines going up to Ghana on digitization of agriculture, working very closely with organizations including the ASEAN Circuit Trade to African Union. 2018, I was honored by World Economic Forum as a technology pioneer. Very few such award they give, and that also gave allowed me to start playing a very active role globally on digitization of agriculture. I'm also part of their expert panel for digital transformation, where we have been talking about digital tools. What COVID has done is that they have brought both of the things together. So what the CEOs, the state heads were not able to do, now suddenly farmers themselves, they started asking about digital tools. So COVID has been playing a very, very vital role in the way we do agriculture today. From broken value chains, right, to broken execution of contract for the farmers. That had made digitalization very, very critical for going forward in agriculture. So at DG Agri, typically we use all those technologies you have heard about, all the jargons, as well as making value of those jargons for the farmer. Farmer is not a rocket scientist. I tell him blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I give him all that shit. He said that what I'm going to do tomorrow in the field is most important to me rather than all these things thrown together. So making digitization intuitive to the farmer is what DigiAgri stands for. Our DNA is about growing more crop per drop of water, per dollar of input cost, per acre of land, and for per farmer. The last part is very critical per farmer because for decades we have been trying to put the burden of food security on the farmers, which is not right because he is the weakest link in the whole value chain, and we try to put all the responsibilities on him, which has made him what we say today in South Asia and Southeast Asia, a poor farmer. So let's ensure that the poor farmer doesn't remain a poor farmer. Can we have a next slide? Yes, how do we do that? It's very simple. At the center actually is the concept of, as I said, more crop per drop of water and input as well as per farmer and per land. We use all technologies which we've talked about, from satellite technologies to drones to IoTs to machine learning algorithms. And all of that is delivered to the farmer in a very intuitive way through a mobile application if he is a farmer with a smartphone. However, most of the farmers in Southeast Asia, they don't have access to smartphone. The penetration is between 18%, 34%. What about the remaining farmer? So we work with a concept called agripreneur. So he is basically a local influencer farmer or a youngster in a village. He is called community manager, and he is equipped with the technology. And farmer actually gets things in just format of a Google Calendar, which you have, which says what to grow, when to grow, and how to grow. So we have made these all the technologies very, very intuitive for using the farmers. Now, farmer is, as I said, that is a sustenance farmers in this part of the world, so he cannot pay for the technology. So we have to evolve our business model to include all the stakeholders. So we work with the governments, we work with the aggregators, typically the output buyers, we work with the input companies, the bank or financial institutions, as well as the cooperatives to ensure that all the data we collect about the farmers also give win-win situation and insight to those who are actually stakeholders in the ecosystem. For example, input companies will tell him where to sell their product. We ensure their sales optimization happens. We work with the aggregators or the output buyers to tell them from where to aggregate their final produce which they are taking care of. We work with financial institution to give credit rating to them about the farmers so that they can give credit at the right price point with a lower risk to the farmers. We work with the government to tell them where should their strategy of agriculture should go. So all these things ensure that we are able to generate revenue from the ecosystem players and give service at no cost or low cost to the farmers. Can we have a next slide, please? So talking about the subject in hand, the digitization in agriculture, I believe there are four very, very key trends which all of us need to understand. So one is that actually, yes, we are having humongous amount of farmer data. It was there, but unfortunately, so far we were thinking it is of no use, so we were not collecting it. So from smart tractors going to the satellites, we are having huge amount of data today. So people always say that data is a new oil. I say that's wrong, because oil you use one, data is new soil. Every time you sow one seed, you have a beautiful new crop. So we have to start using data more proactively. But data is of no value unless you give in a way of insight. All this data make no sense if it does not give simply what needs to be done in actionable insight to the farmer. Second is that now we are having robots and we are having drones. Now these are basically able to reduce increase the safety as well as efficiency of the farmers. But at the same time, we have to be very cautious about that we don't overuse it, trying to remove farmer out of a farm. A farm without farmer makes no sense to me, at least. Then we talk about typically the very, very critical part is that we have to start moving to controlled farming. The climate change is ensuring that we don't have control on our weather. It's very difficult to predict the weather. We start doing coffee today at a place, after 10 years, it won't be able to grow coffee because the climate has changed. So we'll have to start investing more on control farming, typically the hydroponics, aeroponics of the world, where we can ensure that we optimize the environment for the crop. And finally, we waste 30% of the food we produce. That's a criminal waste, right? So we have to ensure that using smart packaging, traceability, at the same time optimization, the whole value chain, we ensure that the food loss is curtailed to minimum. So with that, I would like to end my initial comments on where the digitization should take us in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak. That was very concise and the message is very clear. I think it is quite clear from Mr. Deepak's presentation that although we are bringing in all this robotics, automation, we must not forget there is a farmer there. And this is part of the whole value chain, and the farmer's interest will have to be also taken into account. Now, maybe based on that, I would like to pose my first question. You see, agriculture is a very big business in the world. It generates a lot of income for many countries. But the one who produce agriculture, they remain poor. So how do we address this very basic question? How do we make farmers get better return for their effort? Please. Mr. Deepak, maybe you want to respond to that first?
Yeah, sure. See, as I said, that the farmer need to be center of agriculture, right? This is the whole philosophy of that. Actually, can we have agriculture without farmers? I believe it is misplaced, specifically when we talk about developing world, including South and Southeast Asia and Africa, because you are having close to 40% of the workforce in these economies actually involved in agriculture. So if you want to get them out of agriculture, please find some other way you can employ them, right? Or ensure that they're having minimum income so that they can sustain. The burden has been for past 3 decades since the Green Revolution on farmers, use more fertilizers, use more pesticide, now use more data, right? We always push them to the limit where actually we have not ensured that the degradation of their soil, we were responsible, right? And we never compensated them for that. So the modern way of thinking is that, first of all, we have to make farmer not just productive, but also profitable. Now, how you can make farmer profitable? The idea is very simple, 2 things. Making grow something which not actually he can grow, but something what market needs, right? So we have to ensure that this whole hypothesis of that actually food security should go away, and farmer has to start thinking as a businessman that let me grow something which I get right valuation for all the effort, all the input I am putting in that. So first thing is that right crop identification. Why we keep on emphasizing on rice, right? And ensuring that actually the farmer is not getting even the price of actually his input cost on rice, right? Just because the nation needs food security. I'm not against food security, but a farmer should not be burdened for food security. Second thing is that we have to reduce substantially the cost of input. The fallacy of using more input has been put since 1970s. If you see today, right now we are saying that let's go back and reduce the input, right? So are we saying for 30 years we were practicing the wrong things, right? Yes, the science, or I'm saying that today's data give me the value of seeing things in the hindsight, in a rear view mirror, which tells me that actually we have to ensure that the cost of input need to reduce by close to 200%. It has increased by 400% over past 2 decades itself, while the cost of commodity has only increased by 80%. So we have to actually make agriculture fair. The third thing is that the market linkages. Now, believe me, the biggest challenge is that farmer is not able to take produce to the market and sell it at the right price. So one of the reasons is that actually we are not able to actually create agriculture, which is a demand-driven agriculture. It is always a supply-driven agriculture. We wait for the output and then we say that let's set the price of it. Fourth thing is that the policies. The government has been misreading agriculture for now decades because they have always focused on inflation. They never focused on sustainability of agriculture itself. So if we are able to tackle these 4 things, I believe the farmer would be a rich farmer and we'll have a sustainable agriculture ecosystem. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Those are very good points. Yes, Mr. Chanchai, do you have some comments on those questions?
Yeah, I cannot agree more with what Mr. Deepak just mentioned. So 3 key things from me. First thing is about trying to increase the potential revenue of the farmer. Overall, we want the farmer to be richer, to be able to develop their own business. We think about their own business, not only their own farm. So revenue must be increased. Plan what the market needs rather than what they have been planning for the last 3 or 2 decades. So that's the first thing. The second point is about how we can reduce the cost that is not necessary for them. For example, if we are talking about using of the fertilizer, using of the water, using of the utility, right now with the data, with the smart technology in presence, in utilization, the farmer know exactly what is the amount of usage, for example, for the fertilization, NPK, for that particular type of soil, for that particular type of crops. So they don't need to overinvest, overuse the fertilizer, and hence reduce the cost that they need to spend. And thirdly, if we are talking about the technology utilization, okay, we can say AI, ML, or whatever drone technology, yeah, but to the really grassroots, bottom of the pyramid farmers, this means nothing to them. Absolutely 0% to them. They don't know anything because they don't even have a smartphone. Yeah. So essentially, if we're talking about the data availability, they can go to the internet. No, they can go to see them in the smartphone. No, they can leverage them. No, they have absolutely no idea what we are talking about. So we interact a lot together with the Farmer Association of Thailand, not because we think that we need to move them up the value chain, but because we think that they are necessary. Because if those farmers cannot sustain themselves, they won't be the farmer in the future. They go and do something better off. Yeah, we have less care for the large company and conglomerates because they have budget, they have R&D, they have their own people and technology. But the SME and small farmer, they don't. So coming back to the right question, how to make the farmer being able to use and adopt the technology, we need to think a little bit about how they normally work. Since the technology cannot penetrate to them, we need to bring the technology to what Mr. Deepak said, the head of the community. Those head of community has the way, has linkage, has contact to those farmer at the grassroots and at the bottom of the pyramid. They can walk them to understand what are the technology out there. If the internet access is not available, just print a sheet of paper telling them that in the next 7 days the rain will come. The irrigation has a problem which will cause flooding in the next 10 days. So let's plan in advance, or in the future, in the next 3 months, there will be a lot of melon coming out. Why don't you do something else or try to delay the production of your melon production, something like that. So with all of this, I think this can address our pain point at hand on how to make sure that the farmer can have a better lifestyle and also the wealth. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Shrab.
Yes, I think I agree with the points. To elaborate it further, certainly when it comes to Southeast Asia, most of the countries have similar kind of situation right now. We don't have, as I mentioned in my presentation, we don't have big farmers right now. So most of the farmers, if you say they have 2 to 4 or 5 acres of land, which they actually they use for production. So certainly, so there can be many methods and means, public and private partnership, how we can engage with them. So Thailand conditions are a bit different. when it comes to government is very supportive. I would say in last few years there are many programs right from soil management, water management, and many other things, and corporates like CP are supporting in big way. But at the same time, we really need to see that how industry, when it comes to the automation and other things, how they create a consortium together. Because right now I see there is a bit disconnect right now. It's like most of the like platforms right now, they are running in isolations. So it's a kind of, when it comes to for example, software as a service model is as well for the agriculture. So certainly it has to be a kind of common platform where it can support end to end, right from the soil condition or the fertilizer to the produce and everything together, and even connecting the marketplace. So that's where it is.
Yeah, I think you have all presented some very good and relevant points on this issue, because the irony is that if you look at one crop, for example, rubber, in Malaysia is a very topical issue now, rubber. The farmers grow the rubber. Rubber is provided for downstream manufacturers. Everyone downstream makes money, but not the farmers. So I like the idea presented earlier about the bringing in the stakeholders together in terms of making sure that farmers are using the right technology, the right material inputs. And this is something that can happen. And my question is that if we want to do all this, who should be driving this? Like in Thailand, you have mentioned that you have prepared some kind of a white paper on digitalization of agriculture. What about any other ways that can be done, or is it has to come from the government to push this kind of agenda for agriculture? Yes, can we start with Dr. Shrout first? What is your response to this? Who should be starting all this?
Okay, so certainly government is, as I mentioned, government certainly is enabler for this. The overall, when it comes to the ecosystem, so actually there are many players, like right from the agri input companies, or there are the processing companies, there are farming companies, there are financial leading institutions. There are core insurance providers, there are seed production companies, there are actually community trading companies, there are advisory boards, independent advisory boards, and there are like farm equipment companies. So actually it's a huge gamut of, and then end of the day there is a e-commerce for right from the produce to the input altogether. So I'm saying that the whole ecosystem actually has a very vital impact and role to play in when it comes to supporting this ecosystem. So certainly government can be enabler, but how to drive it, we really need to actually connect the dots together in a much wiser way, having understanding of the local conditions and the challenges together.
All right. Yes, Mr. Chanchai, you may want to talk.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with what Mr. Saraf just mentioned. I think of it into two different ways. So first of all, if we are talking about the large agriculture manufacturer, large agriculture conglomerates, then they can go on and they can operate very efficiently by themselves. They use innovation, they use technology, they have huge R&D resources. So the role of the government is pretty much enabling and try not to stop what the private sector, private company, private conglomerates are doing, because they are doing very well. But if there is anything that public sector or the government can do, is trying to think about, what can be the unlock in terms of the policy to improve the overall competitiveness of the agriculture sector in Thailand. So that is the first section. Then the second section, I'm thinking about, then how we can move the remaining agriculture sector in Thailand. We're talking about the SME, we're talking about the, not so rich or poor farmers. Then I think this is a combination of support from public, private, and also the people. So we call it 4P, public-private people partnership. And in this role, the public sector will need to play a more active role. They cannot just being the enabler. They cannot only unlock the policy to improve the competitiveness, but they need to also understand and show to the private sector, to all the players in the ecosystem of what is the current pain point at the bottom of the pyramid. What are the current issues that those poor farmers are facing at the moment? I mentioned about the lack of technology penetration because they just simply don't know how to do it, how to operate it. So if this is the key contribution that the government or public sector can come in and inform the rest of the ecosystem, then that can be a better off. So a joint working force, a joint task force of public sector, private sector, academia, R&D facility, the farmers, and the community and association come and work together. This can be the way forward for Thailand to improve on this. And in Thailand, we had a program that called Pracharat. So it is essentially the public, private, and people partnership. So a consortium that bring in the top conglomerates and also the public sector and try to understand what are the pain points of the people at the grassroots or at the bottom of the pyramid, and try to identify how can Thailand as a nation move forward and address those issues together.
Oh, very good. Mr. Deepak, yeah, I was wanting to add a bit more to you because you mentioned about
Sure. So
market-driven agriculture. You mentioned about market-driven agriculture. But if you are growing crops like rubber, which is perennial, how do you change according to the market?
okay. So let me first of all add on to the previous question, because that is very exciting part. Because I have a very, very divergent view on that. End of the day, believe me, if you see today how the industry, the SMEs globally changed, right? It was through Alibaba's and Amazon, and the government has no role to play in that. Today, you are having the biggest media company, which is typically Twitter, right? Again, no government played any role, neither the private sector. Today, the largest companies in different sectors you'll find are the digital companies, right? The companies which are sitting on a lot of data, companies which are able to use the data to create revenue and pass it on to value chain. Google, right? Now, Google is giving actually income tax to across the government across the globe, right? Because they are having that level of data to play with. So I believe that strongly that the government's only role should be to enable the digital transformation of their economies, including in agriculture. The private sectors and the digital companies are capable of taking it. Some of them will succeed, some of them will fail, some investor will make money, some investor will lose money. But end of the day, the focus has to be very simple, that let's not tinker too much. We tinkered in 1960s and 70s. We know what we have done with agriculture in most of this part of the world, right? So let's not let the market forces play. Only thing is that we have to monitor and regulate so that we are not seeing monopolies. Only focus of the government should be there, not to see there are monopolies. Rest of the things, government has no business to be in business. That's my view on this part of it. Now, coming to when you rightly said that if somebody is already growing rubber, right, how can he be data driven? First of all, let's ensure that our farmers not are monocropping, right? That itself was a fallacy, right? Because when you do one crop itself, that creates a lot of challenge. There could be pest problem, there could be market dynamics, there could be the change in government regulation, and suddenly you are having a farmer who is taking all the hit, right? And our insurance across the Southeast Asia, we know how I'll say that efficient and effective they are in taking farmers' problem, right? They are not. So until unless you don't have a very, very strong security management for the farmers, when the crop fail or the market forces make them fail, right? The farmer need to be encouraged to do multi-cropping. That's very, very critical. So when you're doing multi-crop cropping using digital technology, even for a small parcel of land, you'll be profitable, right? You'll be able to identify right crops. You'll be able to identify that actually what are the complementing crops to rubber or to palm or to other crops like tobacco. So now we need to understand that the data as an input is a fourth input, right? From the fertilizer, pesticide, water, and labor, you are having a fourth input, which is actually data. Let's use that data very, very, I'll say that in an innovative way, in an actionable way for the farmers, so that he is not actually dependent on anything, including the government.
Okay, very good points. Huh? Yes, we have some questions from the audience, but most of these actually have been answered in your in your presentation and your response to the previous question. There is one question here: how can farmers break the digital gap to modernize farming? I think we have touched on this as well. And how can plantation use automation to solve this labor problem? Maybe one of you or anybody of you want to respond to that question? Yes, Dr. Shrab, you want to respond?
Can I?
How can
Yeah.
farmers break the digital gap to modernize farming? Yes, anybody?
So, sorry.
Did you
Yeah.
listen to the
So,
question?
can you repeat the question? Sorry. What was the question?
How can farmers break the digital gap? That means how can they be more digitalized, the farmers?
I think this is answered quite in detail already. Yeah, certainly, as to summarize, certainly, that we talked about that farmers, when we see that farmers don't have to actually take care of to understand they have many farmers, they don't have access to internet, they don't have access to the mobiles or something. Certainly we need to actually be as a enabler, we need to educate them, right, either from the large corporates or through the community programs, and actually bring that account a kind of service model where they can leverage the technology, but not as in, I would say that in terms of using it effectively themselves, but certainly as an ecosystem we can actually help drive their overall cultivation through the digitalization as an ecosystem. So that's what my answer is. But I think Deepak also gave a very good answer on top of it. Yeah.
I actually want to bring up another matter with regard to the business model. Now farmers have a certain business model. And if you look at the other sectors like ICT, manufacturing, we have actually been introduced to a new business model which are called startups. Startups which are actually started by young people, graduates. They start a new business startup, and all technology-based, technology-driven. Why can't we apply such a concept to farming? That means we have a startup run by graduates who are more familiar with the technology, and they will actually coordinate the work of the farmers to make sure that they are technology dependent and produce better output, better productivity. Can this be a way, business model for farming? Yes, anybody?
Maybe I can take a step on this first.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is very true. The startup mindset or the way of thinking is disrupting every industry, and agriculture is among one of them. However, realistically, agriculture has been the bread and butter, has been a traditional industry for so many decades. It is really hard to change, and because of that, we see that as a result, the farmers are in the bottom of the pyramid. They are poor, and as a result, also the education level of themselves, of their second generation, of the third generation, are not so well. But more and more, we see some upcoming opportunity. We see the light towards the end of the tunnel. That those second generation, those still young and teenager, third generation of farmers, they want to go back to their homeland, to their farm, in the rural area, rather than staying in Bangkok, in the big city. They want to do something with what their parents, what their grandparents have been doing for decades, but in a new way. Why? Because the second generation have zero chance to do so. Their parents are still in power, still active, in a good physical shape, and they know what they do for over a decade or two. So they have zero chance to make any change. But the third generation coming with the new education, even though not super high education, but they know what technologies are available out there. And they are in the the so-called term, the digital native, whereby they have been growing up together with mobile phone, smartphone, internet, and technology. The knowledge is actually in their own hand. Yeah. So if they want to know anything, they just Google it and find the solution. So this is a chance where I think there is really the light at the end of the tunnel, that this younger generation can come in and disrupt the traditional way of how this industry has been performing for decades. Now, how to make the touching point towards the new technology when this segment has not have a lot of wealth, a lot of technology, a lot of R&D and the capability. So this is where the different people, different players in the ecosystem can come in together and pretty much embracing and bringing this the younger generation and together with their first generation and second generation of farmer coming up and adapt the technology together.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Deepak, you have some points on startup.
Yeah, sure. As myself being serial entrepreneur who created the 3 startups, definitely I have a very important view on this. See, when we talk about startup, the challenge is that actually startup are focused with the mindset of they are investment driven, right? So if I start a company, then actually I'll need investment to go to the next level, further Series A, Series B, Series C. The challenge with the agriculture is that the agriculture to validate takes more time. So 1 month in any common startup is 3 months in agriculture, because it is based on typically the season. You are missed a season, 6 months down the line, you'll have to retry the things. So you cannot actually validate your models very fast. So this is actually the internal part, I'm saying that, which is very critical in agriculture, different than other startups. Second thing is that your end user, which happens to be the farmer, unfortunately, he's not having the wallet size, which actually interests a lot of investors, right? So suddenly you are seeing that actually I need to have more customers to just get to the same revenue. Now that actually is not something which is very interesting for a lot of investors. The third thing is that actually this whole concept of the sustenance farming. So again, everybody said that because government's role is very critical in agriculture, any policy change can make or break a startup. So suddenly if a government says that actually you cannot do traditional way of selling and buying, and I've created a model based on traditional way of selling and buying agriculture commodities, I'm dead overnight. So here what we have to understand is that just like any other ecosystem, startup ecosystem also need initially, right, specifically in agriculture, a lot of support. So let's take example of India. We are talking about $500 million would be invested in 2020 in ag tech itself. Now, one of the reason is that actually we have to start thinking about the social or impact investing. Now, the governments has to start, the private sector has to start that what type of world they want of future. Do they want a world which is actually still having 5% people having 95% of the resources, or we want to have a world which is more equity driven? Now, that is only possible if we start focusing on something which is very critical called impact investments, right? So as a government, you have to encourage it. As a private sector, you have to start thinking about how you can actually convert your CSR money, your profit into some of a impact investment, and suppose these small startups, 90% of them will fail, but 10% of them will create sufficient value for whole of our society to be a better society going forward. And that is what I was wanted to intervene in my views.
Oh, very good. Yes. Last point from Dr. Sharap.
Yeah, certainly I agree on this point altogether. Startups certainly are making a lot of difference, have been making a lot of difference quite earlier as well. Because one thing which I really liked on the point that the generation, I would say the millennial generation, like in farmers' family, they are bringing their know-how on the digital side of it, but as well as also understanding of their core domain. For example, when it comes to the shrimp farming, now that is a very domain specific skill set is required to actually do the shrimp cultivation. So so if we have the right kind of skill set with the knowledge as well as the digital enablement knowledge as well, certainly a lot of problem statements on the field can be resolved. For example, right from the feed management, like shrimp farms is a big problem when they feed the shrimps. They don't have the actually right kind of knowledge that what is the right time to feed the shrimps. So certainly, to using some kind of acoustics and many other solutions, they are able to actually resolve the problem and also optimize the feed as well. Certainly, the disease management and other areas, and I have seen and we have experienced and we have also implemented these solutions in many of the shrimp farms in Thailand as well. So certainly startups needs to be there, but certainly it has to be aligned to specific domain knowledge and as well to for the successful movement as well. So once they actually successful in the small segment, they can actually take it to the corporate for the fundraising or for the larger aspect of it. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I think we have come to the end of the session, and it's been very exciting. And I know that there is still a lot that needs to be answered. There's still many challenges, even with digitalization. We still have to explore new ways of the business model. And thank you once again. And I hope that you, like myself, we have enjoyed this session very much. Thank you very much, Bunny.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Lively discussion indeed. Thank you very much once again to all our panelists, Mr. Chanchai, Dr. Saurabh, and Mr. Deepak. Thank you once again for joining us today. And also, we would like to thank to our professor, Dr. Ahmad bin Ibrahim, for sharing this session. And to all our viewers out there, thank you for watching Expert Insight at Live. If you like what you have seen, please subscribe to Conflex Hub channel, switch on the notification, and get notified on our Expert Insight at Live on-demand videos. Do follow us as well on our LinkedIn page, FB page, and Twitter for more interesting episodes and topics on market, policy, strategy, technology, and innovation in your economic sector that have steered the industry growth. Coming this September, we will be hosting our Agriculture 4.0 conference and exhibition, fully virtual, from 7th till 10th September 2020. 4 days conference with over 20 international industry experts sharing on latest trends and technologies for the agriculture industry. Register now. John Deere is one of the gold sponsors for this forthcoming conference. Coming up next, trends and technologies that are impacting the agriculture and farming, Tuesday, August 18, 2020. The end.